Hello everyone, this is part 9 of What If Naruto Went into the Naruto World, and I hope you guys enjoy this video and to like, to subscribe, to share, and check out the playlist, to see more comment down below. Now let's start the intro.
They call me a god. They call me a god. They call me a god.
Join my membership, the perks are great. It's in the description. Be sure to like and subscribe, it gives me more motivation. Enjoy. The sand whipped through the air, causing Gaara's hair to stand on end, but he didn't care. The sand protected him, and that was all it was ever going to do. The red-haired boy narrowed his eyes as sensed someone's presence behind a particular sand dune. That girl. Is she still alive? He thought as he rounded over the dune. His eyes widened in surprise. It wasn't the girl, as he expected, but it was a cluster of explosive notes. They weren't activated, but they had the distinct allure that the girl had. Gaara didn't understand why, but there was something about the explosive notes that linked him to the girl. Gaara slowly shook his head. An explosive note user, Gaara thought before walking deeper into the desert in reflection. Kat, or as she was known now as Katsuko, was waiting for her fate at the hands of a man who wouldn't even show his face to her. He hid his face behind a veil. This is bull. I can't believe this, Katsuko thought irritably. She had no idea what was going on, how she got here, or how she saved herself from inevitable death. Of course she was pissed off. We have come to an agreement, the man said finally after hours of deliberation. Since you are a shinobi and we are desperately in need of shinobi, we have agreed that you will be able to join a genin team. Ah, yay, Katsuko said hesitantly, not sure if this was good or bad. But under one condition. You must fight against Gaara, and survive. The man finished ominously. Gaara who? Katsuko paused for a moment before her eyes lit up. Oh, that weird kid that looks like a panda. I know him, Katsuko exclaimed out loud, clasping her hands together in triumph. Unnerved, the man merely stared at Katsuko, one eye twitching uncontrollably. My son, the man said after a few minutes of awkward silence. Your test will start as soon as we find Gaara, so I suggest you prepare yourself. As in sleep. Got ya, Katsuko said before lying down on the floor. In a few seconds she was promptly asleep, exhausted by the day's events. The Kazekage looked surprised for a moment before shaking his head. What in the world did I eat before falling asleep? Kat thought as she drifted through the darkness. Her stomach rumbled again. God, I hope I didn't eat that pizza. Come to me, whispered a voice from out of nowhere. A second later a large purple demon in a white robe materialized out of the darkness. Yep, I defiantly ate that stale pizza, Kat concluded as she stared at the demon in front of her unflinchingly. So, I'm guessing you'll be taking me to my doom? Kat asked in a bored sort of way. No, I have come to ask what is your reason for being here. The demon's face twitched upwards even more at the expression on Kat's face. How should I know? Kat asked, scowling. Something about REMs. I never did pay attention in class. REM. This is no dream, the demon said, showing its pointed teeth. I have already met someone like you, but it seems you have already found a body, one already. Yes. The demon shook its head so its long white hair was out of its eyes. Since you have disrupted the life cycle of this young lady, I cannot keep her with me. The damages of death have already affected her soul, but, the demon suddenly stopped, noticing Kat's blank stare. What the hell are you talking about? Kat demanded, and for the first time there was an uncertain glint in her eyes. You'll see, the demon said as a shimmering mist gathered next to the demon. Slowly the mist started to take the form of a girl about Kat's age. I am the death god and you have, as you would say, cheated death. Kat backed away from the self-proclaimed death god and the image of a girl. I don't know what you're talking about, but I'm not staying to find out. Unfortunately, in order for you to survive in this world you must. And without a second thought the death god waved its hands. Suddenly the image of the girl flew at Kat. Kat screamed, but it was quickly stifled as the girl embraced her. Slowly the girl kneeled down, and before she knew it she had suckbed to the spirit. Though the spirit of this girl is long gone, her memories will live on with you. The death god slowly retreated into the darkness, his two horns the last to disappear. When Kat woke up, the first thing she was aware of was the splitting headache she had. The next thing she noticed was that she was outside and lying on the sand. Ah! Kat yelped as what felt like a hammer struck her head. Slowly Kat bent down holding her head and whimpering. Images flashed through her mind like a movie going in fast motion and she couldn't do anything to stop it. She was only dimly aware of the red-haired boy looking grimly at her before she passed out. Gaara grimaced as he watched the girl collapse onto the ground. He was used to these sudden headaches himself and he could relate. Unfortunately, his father ordered him to test the girl to see if she was worthy. Something Gaara found unnecessary, but if it meant king again he would do it. Gee Gaara, are you okay? Gaara glared at the girl who spoke to him. Besides her was a boy examining his nails, and looking anywhere but at Gaara. The girl backed away suddenly seeing the look on Gaara's face. Temari, go away, Gaara said glaring at the girl with blonde pigtails before he turned to the boy wearing a weird sort of purple makeup on his face. You too Kankuro. Well you heard him Temari. We'll be going now then. Kankuro said quickly before tugging a very agitated Temari with him. Gaara shook his head before looking back at the unconscious girl. So, this will be your first test. Gaara thought as he held out a hand. Slowly sand began to flow out of his gourd. When Hinata woke up in a completely alien environment she actually handled it quite well. She didn't scream as Naruto would have done, but she stood up and walked over to the mirror, thinking it was all just a dream and she was about to find the cure for Naruto any minute. Hinata slowly started to smile as she examined her new body. At least I don't have humongous, Hinata blushed feeling her chests. Damn it, still there, she thought sadly. Hinata had no doubt in her mind that it was because of her BS that John and probably everyone else in the 10th grade and up was after her. Hinata yawned before walking over to the closet and sliding it open. Orderly rows of large oversized jackets greeted her. A grin slowly formed on Hinata's face. So, this girl has the same problems I have. Hinata wondered as she took out a jacket and tried it on. Wow, Hinata said softly as she saw herself in the mirror. She was aware she was anything but decent looking at the moment. She only had a pair of panties on and a coat that was half zipped. But other than that, Hinata noticed that at least the coat hid her figure well. Now for pants, she murmured to herself as she bent down in the closet searching for pants. She wasn't aware when someone slid open her screen door. She only noticed when she heard something snap shut. Hinata turned around looking for an intruder, but when she found no one she just shrugged and returned to her search. Neji was breathing heavily with a large blush on his face while he leaned against a support beam. He had all intents to barge into Hinata's room and start berating her for her lateness, but he wasn't prepared for how indecent she was. The blush slowly started to creep up his face until he felt the heat spread throughout his body. Damn it, Neji thought angrily as he shook his head to get the recent images of Hinata out of his mind. He had to remind himself that Hinata was nothing more than a failed heir of the main branch and nothing more. I should have knocked, Neji realized before ruefully shaking his head. The only reason he barged in was because of last time. Hinata spent so long dressing that Hiashi punished him for no reason whatsoever. At least that's what Neji thought Hiashi was angry about. There is time for revenge but not right now, Neji muttered to himself. Hiashi was fuming as he stormed down the stairs. The council had just denied his appeal and now he couldn't do anything about Naruto. That blasted fox. You better not make a move on my daughter. Hiashi growled, ignoring anyone that got into his way. Instincts. It was once again instincts that saved Kat from certain death, but this time she understood exactly what was happening. No longer was everything just a mass of confusion and fear. Now there was hardness in her eyes that was not there before. Kat now was no longer Kat. She was now Katsuko. Sand crashed into the ground where Katsuko once was. Gaara's eyes narrowed at the agility of the girl but didn't say anything. He just glared at the girl even as she glared back at him. What the hell was that all about? Katsuko exclaimed. There was a relieved sigh from one part of Katsuko's mind. At least I'm still myself, Katsuko thought, smiling slightly, but it was still disorienting having a second pair of memories. I must test you to see if you are worthy, Gaara said emotionlessly as his sand switched directions and flowed towards Katsuko. Without thinking, Katsuko held out her hands and was only slightly surprised when explosive notes flew out to meet the sand head-on. One part of Katsuko's mind was in awe while another part accepted it as if it was normal. Gaara frowned as the sand met explosive notes in an explosion that rocked the ground. She is nothing like the girl I met before, he thought, noticing the girl was nowhere in sight. Slowly his sand curled defensively back. Days and Nomi and I made of sand formed. Katsuko frowned, still hiding behind a sand dune. So this is Gaara. I'm supposed to fight against him to prove my worth. Katsuko smiled slightly. Easy enough, she thought, unaware of the eye that formed behind her. Got you. Sabaku-kyu. Suddenly the sand that Katsuko was sanding on rose from the ground and grabbed her, holding her still. A few seconds later Gaara parted the dunes and walked towards the now motionless girl. Gaara slowly frowned as he noticed the girl wasn't struggling. Something is wrong. Suddenly the girl disappeared in a puff of smoke and a large bundle of explosive notes faced him. Gaara's shield had just enough time to form a barrier before the whole desert coffin exploded in a burst of light, shooting the sand out like shrapnel. Her apart, roared a crazed voice deep inside Gaara's head, sending pain rolling through his mind. I can't, Gaara rasped out as he clutched his head. Do it. Blood. I need more blood. Mother, yes, Gaara said suddenly as his arms dropped down limply. I will get some blood for mother. Katsuko watched the boy with a small amount of interest. She knew that everything that was happening was real because her other set of memories were just too real to dismiss as another part of her dream. I can't worry about that now, I need to find out how to survive. Come out wherever you are. Gaara said, sounding more than a little psychotic, before kneeling down onto the sand and placing his two palms down. If you don't, then I'll make you. Ryusa Bakari, Gaara hissed, sending shockwaves through the ground. Katsuko's eyes widened in surprise, as the whole desert started to shake and a huge 50-foot wave formed from the sand. Oh my, Katsuko muttered as the sand dune she was hiding behind eroded away. Gaara's maniacal smile widened before he sent the wave crashing forward. Crap. There's only one thing I can remember that can save me, Katsuko thought desperately, hoping that the memories of the other girl were real. Bakuyaku Shoheki no Jutsu, she cried as she lifted her hands up. Instantly explosive notes flew out in waves as they plastered themselves into a wall in front of her. It would have surprised her if this didn't happen thousands of times in her other memories before. What? Gaara hissed as his sand pounded into the wall of explosive notes. The bright blue explosion scattered the sand wave, and Gaara's sand barrier reacted even before Gaara could register the shock wave that blasted into his cocoon of sand. But even this didn't prevent Gaara from getting blasted 50 feet back from the backlash of the attack. Katsuko frowned, looking faintly dazed but otherwise fine. The few blue flames that still flickered on the ground slowly disappeared as if they weren't even there in the first place, and Katsuko, though still confused, felt a little more refreshed. Gaara, though, was seething with anger as he pulled himself up, cracks forming along his face. You. Gaara growled angrily as he raised up a hand. Sabaku Senpu. Holy s, Katsuko muttered as she looked up in amazement. This attack was even more impressive than the wall of sand that nearly crushed her earlier. Rather than just a wave of sand, a cyclone of sand suddenly rose into the air and was steadily growing in strength. My Sabaku Senpu has an infinite amount of resources here. I cannot be defeated, Gaara said stolidly as his mask came back again. The demon that was causing his headache slowly retreated into the darkness as it sensed Gaara becoming more rational. Katsuko was silent as she watched the sand whirlwind advance towards her, scouring her mind for anything that could save her. She found nothing. I guess I have to use my own wits now, Katsuko thought grimly as she felt the wind start to build up, whipping her bright red hair to the side. By now the sand whirlwind was about the size of a small tornado. Gaara. It's over. Gaara turned his head jerkily towards the person who dared address to him that way. The next second the sand whirlwind collapsed as Gaara realized it was his father that ordered him to stop. Fine then, Gaara said before walking away without another word. Wow. There was only one word Katsuko could find to describe Gaara at the very moment. Cool. Katsuko thought as Gaara disappeared, dispersing into the sand. Oh okay then, the Kazekage said shakily. Apparently, he was afraid that Gaara wasn't going to follow his command. You passed the test, you managed to stay alive, the Kazekage said. Even though the veil hid his expressions, he was impressed. No one stayed alive longer than this girl had. So what team do I get put on? Katsuko asked, looking slightly excited. Gaara's. No way. Not that panda boy. Katsuko said, looking appalled at the very thought of being on the same team with the guy who just tried to K her. You have no choice in the matter. The Kazekage said. It's either that or, even though he didn't continue, his meaning was clear. She would join Gaara's team or else she would be ked. Damn. Fine then, but where do I stay? Katsuko asked, frowning slightly as she just realized that she had no home to go to. I have that covered, but unfortunately I have more important things to do at the moment. The Kazekage said, sounding anything but regretful. Daiki will show you to your home, he said before turning away. Daiki? Who? Before Katsuko could even finish her sentence, a person appeared instantly besides her. The man peered at her though the ISS of the cat mask. Him again. He's an Anbu, Katsuko thought as the man took her hands into his calloused ones. Come. I will show you to your room, Katsuko-sama. Katsuko sighed wearily as she sat down on the bed. The Anbu had left her the moment she got the keys to the apartment and went on his way. Katsuko sighed wearily as she looked out the window. A sandstorm raged outside, but there were still people walking outside. People already adapted to the harsh conditions of the desert. Something she still had to adjust to, but that was not the only thing she had to adjust to. Katsuko turned her head, and for the first time her mouth tilted upwards into a smile. She had noticed the circular mirror directly opposite from her, and she barely recognized the girl in the mirror. Fiery red hair framed her sharp face and much of it flowed down to her back. She unconsciously knew it used to be in a ponytail, but now it hung freely. Right now she had on a simple black kimono complete with a black miniskirt that clashed terribly with her eyes, which were a dark purple. A simple pure white obi wrapped around her waist. But the thing that made her smile wasn't any of this. It was the fact that she wasn't flat anymore. Quite the contrary. She could say now, with no small amount of confidence, she rivaled Hinata. True, Hinata was still the queen of the, bust, but Katsuko would consider herself princess. Of course, she was comparing them when they were 12 years old since the girl in the mirror looked about 12. She sighed, with the smile still on her face as she lay down. This is real, there's no denying that. Katsuko though, surprised at how clear-headed she was. At any other time she would have been screaming bloody but somehow she more at home here than at her real home. No more stale pizzas, no more school, and most importantly, Katsuko's eyes narrowed in hatred but a few tears still welled up in her eyes. No more Hinata, she whispered. She hated her. She hated her for her looks, her grades, everything about her made Katsuko tremble with anger. Everything Hinata had she never had. Kat had actually been glad when she learned that Hinata's mother SD some time ago giving birth and her father was a bastard, but then Kat felt guilty for it afterwards. Kat never had a loving mother or father. She only had a lazy good-for-nothing older brother that didn't do anything but eat, drink, and sleep. Kat wasn't special in any way. Hinata had always said she had the most beautiful smile. She was the one who encouraged her to try to win the prize for best smile during school. She was the one that comforted her when she failed, winning only second place. She hated her for that. She knew that Hinata would have won if she tried, but she wanted her to go in. She hated her for her naivety. Just because she could have won didn't mean that Kat could have won. There were times where she wished Hinata would just go away and disappear. There were other times where she felt like she loved her. When Hinata caused other guys to go goggly eyes around her unintentionally, Kat hated her. When Hinata started to grow into a beautiful woman while Kat remained a child, she hated her. But when Hinata met her on the playground all those years ago, when the other kids didn't play with her, when Hinata offered her hand and comforted her, Kat loved her. Kat slowly closed her eyes as she drifted off into sleep. At least Hinata's not here. Kat didn't know just how wrong she was. Hinata frowned as she stared at herself in the mirror. Her baggy pants and oversized coat made her look 2 times as big, but it was worth it. She noticed that even though she was very young, she was already started to develop into a woman. Overactive pituitary glands, Hinata muttered darkly as she shook her head slightly before she stepped off her pants to slip into something more comfortable. She then blushed as she saw her panties. They were pink with frilly laces of them. She saw the panties as she was searching for some pants and the urge was too great. Her father never allowed her to have any panties that looked like that, and she was curious how it would look on her. I don't look decent at all, Hinata mumbled out loud. Ha, who said that? Hinata froze as a voice came out of nowhere. Why is everything so dark? What's going on? Hinata's heart wretched when she heard the voice was full of uncertainty and fear. It was then Hinata realized the voice came deep within herself, and as she realized this she unconsciously sat cross-legged onto the ground and drew back into herself. If there's anyone there, please, say something. Hinata pleaded, and before she knew it she wasn't in a room anymore. She was in a luscious green meadow with no idea how she got there. Who are you? Hinata turned around at the voice and found herself face to face with a splitting image of her younger self. It was like the mirror she was staring at before, but this time the girl had an expression of shock on her face. Mom. The girl gasped, looking at Hinata with disbelief. And no, Hinata choked out, remembering her own mother. The fact that the girl looked exactly like her when she was younger made it worse. Hinata stopped thinking fast before she said, I'm your inner conscious. The girl's eyes narrowed as she heard this. If that's true, then what is my name? The girl asked, startling Hinata. This girl was no fool, and Hinata was foolish to try to trick her in such a way. On a hunch, Hinata replied, Hinata. For a few seconds there was nothing but silence. Then there was a great intake of breath before the girl suddenly collapsed onto the ground in a faint. I guess I was right. Hinata murmured to herself before kneeling down and placing Hinata's head onto her lap. So, somehow I'm trapped within your mind. Well, anything's possible now. Seeing Naruto like that, anything is possible. That will be all for this video. Be sure to like, subscribe, share, and comment down below for more videos. Goodbye.